Greg Ehrenberg here with an Awesemo Odds NFL Futures video. I'm here with Matt Gajewski. So we're going to be doing these pretty much every day now leading up to the football season. We're going to be breaking down some of our favorite futures bets. Also, all the more reasons, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also, like this video. And then also, maybe leave a comment below. Give us some of the bets that you like and some of the team features you're looking at. So what Matt and I are going to be focusing on for today is going to be some of the team totals that stand out to us right now. Also, you might want to go bet those lines right now. Head on over to OddsShopper and see the best lines in your area because some of these odds are going to change as the season rolls along and as we get closer to the start of the season. But something I want to start with, Matt, Rams over under 9.5 wins. That is a line that's available right now. Obviously, we have the Cam Akers news. He's out for the season with the torn Achilles. It doesn't change anything for me, though. I still really like the Rams over 9.5. I think they made big improvements by getting Matt Stafford in the offseason. It's still a pretty well-rounded team. I think the defense is going to be really good. Also, if you look at some other books, 9.5 is a very good odds value relative to some of the other lines that are available at other places. Once again, go to OddsShopper to see which books I'm talking about. But what do you make of Rams over 9.5? Is that something you agree with me on?
I think Rams over 9.5 is a smash bet. Everywhere you look around the industry, this is trending upwards. So if you can find a 9.5 at your book, you just hit this immediately. And to your point on Cam Akers, not lucky for the Rams, but if it's going to happen at any position, running back is basically the least needle moving position on the offense. If this were an injury to like Stafford or something, you would see the Rams win total just plummet. And it's an ascending offense. We just noted Stafford coming into the picture. They still have Cup and Woods, and they return every starter in the offensive line. So I'm with you. 9.5 over, I think, is a smash bet right now.
Yeah, and then the other thing too is it's not to say that Cam Akers isn't a good football player, but once again, he's replaceable. He averaged 4.3 yards per carry last year. Henderson averaged 4.5 yards per carry. They might even go out and add another running back. If Akers was to get hurt during the regular season, in the middle of a week or something like that, I don't even think the betting line would move at all. Maybe it moves half a point, depending on what kind of action books get on it, but it's not something that would really move all that heavily. So I don't think this line warrants moving at all. So over 9.5 for the Rams, that's a line that I like, regardless of Cam Akers being out for the season. But now also, I know some of the lines you like because while we're pretending this kind of a conversation, we did a little prep here. So I have some of your picks in front of me, and I know which ones you like. And there's a couple of teams in Pennsylvania that you were targeting, one of them being the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have an over-under of 8.5 wins. So tell me where you stand with them.
I think there's just a lot of public sentiment around the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, they've been historically a very good team for a long while now, except they play in one of the most competitive divisions in football. I mean, you're talking about divisional games against Cleveland. They have a win total above 10. Division games against Baltimore. They have win totals above 10. Cincinnati's even in ascending offense. Then you're battling the AFC West. You're getting games against Kansas City and the Chargers. The NFC North, potentially with Aaron Rodgers returning, that could be another tough game. And then you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers offense overall. They've shown an increased commitment to the run after losing basically every starting offensive lineman, especially after losing DeCastro recently. It's just a recipe for disaster for this team. And when they're projected for 8.5 wins, I think you could easily look at the under here.
Yeah, and I agree with you. It's also a team that really tailed off towards the end of last season. I remember I had I had Alex Smith for comeback player of the year. I had bets on him, and people told me like week 10 or whatever, they're like, hey, that's going to lose because the Steelers are going to go undefeated, and then Ben Roethlisberger is going to comeback player of the year. And then the team just kind of sucked the rest of the season. So not to say that this is like a momentum type thing or that because they lost the end of the season, they should be bad next season. But I do think that they were vastly overrated the first half of the season. It's not like they were blowing teams away. They had a lot of close games, and they played really easy competition when they got off to their hot start last year. So the Steelers, I do expect them overall to be a little bit lesser of a team this year than they were last year. A team also that I think is going to be a worse team this year than they were last year. And this kind of correlates. One of the reasons I like the Rams over, I also like the Lions under. And a lot of it has to do with the QB swap that we've seen. And also that the Lions under, depending what book you look at, it is available for over-under of 6 wins. I don't see any way the Lions get to 7 wins. It is pretty heavily juiced on the under for 6, but worst case scenario, I think this pushes at worst. I just can't see this team going 7-9. The swap at quarterback going from Matt Stafford to Jared Goff. Goff, we've seen him at times have success with the Rams, but keep in mind that was with an elite amount of talent around him. He had great receiving core. He had a great defense. He had a strong offensive line. We saw at times when the team was banged up, Goff really struggle. And, I just think this is a Lions team that's going to be rebuilding. I wouldn't be surprised if they trade away some of their veterans before the season's over. Even a spot where, even though we don't see, outright tanking in the NFL like we might in the NBA, I wouldn't be surprised if the Lions by the end of the season are fielding a much different team than they are at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if you look at Goff in LA, he's basically functioning with a perfect scenario. He has Sean McVay calling his plays. He has Robert Woods and Kupp. Now he goes to Anthony Lynn. He loses Galladay, Marvin Jones, and Danny Amendola. So his top pass catchers are Tyrell Williams and Brashad Perriman. I know the offensive line is good, but I just don't know how this offense has any semblance of efficiency.
Yeah, and it's not like I expect the defense to be spectacular either. And, last year was a middle of the road offense, but like you said, Kenny Galladay's not going to be there. So we've got Jared Goff with just no weapons around him. I think it's a total recipe for disaster, but kind of almost by design. I think the Lions are fine with going 1-15 or 0-16 or 2-14 this year and just kind of building for the future. That's where I think this team is at right now. I'd said before that there was a couple of Pennsylvania teams you were looking at. One of them was the Pittsburgh Steelers. Another team, though, that you're looking at, and this is a team you actually like relative to the odds on them. Tell me why you like the Philadelphia Eagles coming into the season.
First of all, you can get their win total as low as 5.5 in certain spots. You're going to lay pretty heavy juice on that. And if you're not willing to do so, I still am willing to bet this as high as 6.5. It's just a team that's not as bad as they were last year. When you look at some of the injuries they sustained, on the offensive line alone, they're getting back Brandon Brooks, Andre Dillard, Lane Johnson, and Isaac Suomalo. Now, those all weren't injuries for the entire season, but they missed some of those pieces at one point or another. They have 2 first-round receivers in back-to-back years. I don't know what you think of Jalen Hurts, but when you look at how he played in the offense, I think it can honestly be argued that he's a little bit of an upgrade over Carson Wentz based on the latter part of Wentz's career. And then you look at the schedule. Based on opponent win totals, they're projected for the 3rd easiest strength of schedule across the NFL. They face the AFC West, the NFC South, and then they have island games against Detroit, the New York Jets, and the 49ers. So very easy schedule for them as far as opponent win totals go.
Yeah, and I'll talk about Jalen Hurts for a second because I think I'm higher on him than the general public is. I know there's certainly some people who have been, really harsh on Jalen Hurts and thought either the Eagles should have drafted a quarterback this year, that Jalen Hurts isn't going to be the quarterback of the future. I was fairly impressed by what I saw last year. Maybe I'm a little biased because I had some success with him in DFS last year. But still, he's a young quarterback who, showed a lot of mobility and showed some promise. I don't expect him to be, lights out in his first year. But based on what we saw, I don't get why people are so low on him. So before we move forward, Jalen Hurts, where do you stand on him just as a quarterback prospect?
I don't think Philly sees him as the quarterback of the future, but as far as bridge quarterbacks go, Philly's kind of in this soft rebuild right now where they're really investing in around the quarterback position. I think they'll go with Hurts for the duration of the season. And similar to last year, I don't think he's really going to win them games or necessarily lose them. And the pieces are strong enough around him where I think they can eclipse this win total of 5.5. And again, I'm willing to take this over 6.5.
Yeah, and once again, it is a really low win total. So some of the other teams we've talked about, are teams that, like the Rams, 9.5. You like the Steelers for under 8.5, but 5.5 to 6.5. This is a pretty low win total for the Eagles. Now, the final team that I am looking at is going to be the Tennessee Titans. Over 9 wins, depending what book you look at. Someplace it's 9, someplace it's 9.5. Obviously, I prefer the 9 to the 9.5. But with the Titans, it's not only that they added Julio Jones in the offseason, they should have a really prolific offense. I think that Ryan Tannehill is probably one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the NFL. He had a really solid season last year, and I still think it's a little bit of the stink around him just based on what happened with him earlier in his career, especially with the Dolphins. And I don't think people really recognize how good of a quarterback he is. And not only does he have all these weapons around him now, but I really like the division he plays in. I think the Jaguars are going to be better with Trevor Lawrence at quarterback now, but still, the Texans, I think those set up as a couple of easy wins. So the Titans overall, because of the division they play in, the 9 win total to me is just too low. I think this is certainly a team that should finish above 500.
Yeah, I think it's entirely because of the schedule they play within their division. So they do have a couple tough opponents. They're going to face the Chiefs. They're going to face the NFC West. You're getting the 49ers, the Rams in there. But like you said, within the division, it's just a cupcake schedule. Not to mention they've been continually investing in the offensive line. So they should still be able to play their brand of football this year.
And then, Matt, bring us home a team that I'm going to like the under on as well. You have Las Vegas under 7 wins. Now, one of the reasons I said that I like the Titans over 9 is just because of how easy their division is. I have a feeling that one of the reasons you might like the under on Vegas is because of how difficult their division is.
Oh, absolutely. They play, based on opponent win totals, again, the 3rd most difficult schedule in football. So you're getting the usual characters in the AFC West, but then they face the NFC East, which I think is quietly due for some regression forward with Dak Prescott coming back. Washington's improved, and we just talked about Philly. Then they get the AFC North. So that's another very tough division with Baltimore, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, all those characters. When you look at the Raiders roster, they've been trending in the wrong direction for years now. They're losing 3 starters on the offensive line. Derek Carr is still in place. They lose their number 1 receiver in Nelson Aguilar, and I know they've tried to replace him a bit with John Brown coming in, but it's still an offense very much in turmoil. And somehow this team went 8-8 last year. I don't think there's any chance of that with this schedule.
Hey, I'm on board with you too. It is a really tough schedule. Obviously, also the division is just brutal. I think a lot of those games we could kind of chalk up as losses, even though a lot of people will probably make the case that, hey, they've played the Chiefs fairly tough over the last couple of years. Don't care. I don't buy into it, but that is going to do it for us. And just a recap of some of the bets that we looked at today. I like the Titans for over 9 wins, the Lions under 6, the Rams over 9.5. Matt had the Raiders under 7. Philly over 6.5 or 5.5, depending what book you're looking at. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers for under 8.5. And now, guys, head on over to awesemo.oddshopper.com. That's where you can get all of the books that are up and running in your area. And you can see the best lines that are available for you. That is the best place to find any kind of value that you want on sports betting.